You wanna do the Munna? All right. So we'd like to get started a little bit with a quick, summary of what is Munna. Munna stands for, Muslim Ummah of North America. What we do is we're a non-profit Islamic organization. We're countrywide. We are part of the East Zone. We have weekly meetings talking about, Islam, learning our deen. We do dawas, all that, we try to do halakas every week after Maghrib. Anything else you want to add to it? Go on.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Jazakallah for whoever came. May Allah accept you guys. Um, Inshallah, a lot of youths are out there. Out of all these people, you guys are the chosen one. So we say Alhamdulillah that at this time, at this hour, you are chosen to be here. Many people are doing many other stuff which is not going to benefit them. So may Allah accept you coming here, and inshallah pay attention to what we talk here or discuss here. And also we are going to have Q&A afterwards, and uh, some activities and foods afterwards, inshallah. We have some more brothers coming as well. Some brothers just finished their work, but we can't delay. We got to get started, inshallah. So I'll hand it over to Brother Jarir.
All right, so we have our guest speaker today, Mufti Tofael Nuruddin. Uh, a little bio about him. He came from Montreal, Canada. He pursued Quran at a young age and became a Hafiz by the age of 14. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. He is now teaching at a school of Islamic studies and, teaching about Islam. What else? I don't want to. It's a lot to read, so I'm not gonna read all of it. It's a lot. You got a resume, right? You got a nice resume. Actually, I'll read a few of it. Okay, so Shaykh Tofael Nuruddin was raised in Montreal, Canada. He pursued Islamic studies at a tender age, and by 14, he had memorized the Quran under reputable teachers in Cornwall, Canada. He went on to further his knowledge of his Islamic studies in the same institute, and later traveled to Darul Aluum. Oh, that's like DUNJ, isn't it? That's like DUNJ, isn't it? Darul Aluum. That's like the same one. Yeah.
Actually, the principal of Dunge and I, we study in the same institute.
Oh, very nice. Okay, okay. And when I saw that before already, I was like, oh, okay.
Seen this somewhere.
Seen this somewhere, right? He studied a variety of Islamic sciences in the 7 years of Darse Nizami syllabus. He also has I'm gonna butcher this so bad. Ijazat in Hadith from multiple elderly Hadith scholars. He later studied Ifta, specializing in issuing Islamic legal responsa fatwa, and studied legal maxims al Kawid, right? Kawaid al Fiqh at Jamia Kismul al Ulum. Yeah. Yeah, we could let's get started. Our topic is going to be purpose of life. So yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is mad loud, man. Okay, first of all, I would really like it if we can move closer. Like, let's get together. Okay. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa nashhadu anna sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa baraka wa sallama tasliman kathira amma ba'd. Are there any sisters or just these guys, right? Okay, does everybody understand English? Okay, does anybody have any kind of difficulty with English or anything like that? Usually when I go to Bengali crowds, like sometimes they want to hear a bit of Bangla, so I don't know. No? Everybody gets English? Okay, this is comfortable for me then. And we see a very wide range of age groups. Who's the oldest here? Does anyone know? No, I'm like from you guys. Okay, and right. You are? How old are you? Okay, and who's younger than you? Second.
Second oldest would be me.
No, like other than you two, other than you three. Yeah. Okay. How old are you guys? 18. Okay. And who's the youngest here? This kid? How old are you? You're 8? Okay.
We do have junior programs for them. They're not supposed to be here.
Okay, he's not supposed to be here. How about you? Are you supposed to be here? You want to be with the grown-ups, with the cool kids. Right. Okay. How old are you? Okay, you're 11. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna try to. The Prophet ﷺ in a hadith, he says, "خاطب الناس على عقولهم," that address people at the level of their intellect. Now, the way you speak to an 8-year-old varies vastly and wildly from the way you talk to like an 18-year-old or a 24-year-old. So I'm gonna try to keep it within the older range, but inshallah, everybody will be able to understand. So the topic today was the purpose of our life, right? And actually, this is a deeply philosophical question, right? And literally, for hundreds of years, thousands of years rather, different scholars, philosophers, scientists have tried to decode the solution to this. Like, why are we actually alive? Why do we exist? So I'm gonna interview some of you guys, right? Why are we alive? Like, why do you exist? If someone just comes to you and be like, "Hey, you, why do you exist?" Other than just being a useless person that, takes up energy and food and oxygen from everybody, why are you alive? Anyone? Yeah. Sorry, what's your name? Ahmed. Okay, to worship Allah, right? Okay, that's a good answer. What does it mean to worship Allah? Okay, are there any other suggestions like why are we alive? Or does everybody agree with the fact that it should be to worship Allah? Okay, is it only to worship Allah? Is that is it a sole purpose or a primary purpose? Should be a sole purpose, right? No, because primary entails necessarily that there can be a secondary purpose. Like if someone tells you this is the primary purpose, automatically what comes to your mind is that there could be secondary purposes. Sole means this is the only purpose. Does that make sense? Right. So, um, right. So to worship Allah, are there any other suggestions? Like why else do we exist? Yeah. Allah made us, so that's why we exist. Okay, but Allah is intelligent, right? He is smart and He is wise. So if He created us, it must be for a reason. So what do you think? Like, why did Allah create us? Yeah. To live a fun, fulfilling life. Interesting. Uh, yeah. What's it? To test us? Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. Yeah, I think we can address all of these. Any other suggestions? Like, why do we exist?
Some people say to earn happiness. It's not my opinion.
To earn happiness, actually, this is a really good one. I think inherently every human naturally wants to, but the question is, what is happiness? Now, that's the real question. Like you said, a fun, fulfilling life, but what does it mean to be fun and fulfilling? That's really good too, to earn their words to go to Jannah. Okay, so here's my proposition. Here's my suggestion. I think what all of you said goes hand in hand together. Right? So, okay, as human beings, it's a natural tendency that we look for happiness. We look for things that make us happy, right? Like if you take like I have an 11-month-old son, right? Now this kid, like if you give him a new object, he really likes that. If you give him like something sweet, like if you're eating ice cream and you just give him like a little bit from that spoon, he really loves that, right? I mean, he doesn't like speak and he doesn't have reasoning like we do, but at least he knows this. He knows what makes him happy. And like if we leave the room, if me or my wife we leave the room, he starts crying, right? So he knows what makes him happy and he knows what doesn't make him happy, and he's in the pursuit of those things that make him happy, and the things that doesn't make them happy, he tries to, stay away from them, right? And inherently every single human being from birth until death, that's basically what they do, right? Can we agree on this? Right, every human, they're looking for happiness. So when a child grows up, like what's your name? Sorry. Jawad, right? Now Jawad is 8 years old. Like, what do you want to have? What would make you happy? To go to Jannah? What else would make you happy? Like in this world, what would make you happy? Like if someone came to you and some uncle walked in the door, he's like, you know what, Jawad, you look like a really nice fella. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. What would you say? You want to what? A plane?
Play.
You want to play? What do you want to play? Anything? Like, what do you find the most fun? You don't know? Video games? No. Call of Duty? No. Huh? Fortnite? People are sick and tired of Fortnite.
Yeah.
That's done. I think for some time, like Apex Legends was something that died too.
Oh.
PUBG then the PUBG was you're still stuck with okay that's cute. Uh, I think some people moved on to like PUBG. I don't know what's trending now. Anyway, so you like the updates, okay? So okay, so he likes Jawad here likes certain things. He likes certain um, games. That's what makes him happy, right? Now, if I am to ask someone else, for example, um, you what would make you happy? You said the purpose of life is to live a fun, fulfilling life. So, what is a fun, fulfilling life? Okay, so you listed three things. One is a clear goal in mind, stable friends and family, and yeah, financial stability, right? Okay, so that's one definition of fun. Now, do you think that's the same thing as what he said? So his definition and your definition of fun are different, right? Okay. Anybody else has a different definition? Like what do they think is fulfilling? What makes them happy? Like any of you guys, what makes you guys happy? I'm gonna pick at random. What makes you happy? Having a lot of money, but I feel like he said that. He said financial stability. So you guys get along with that. Anything different? Yeah. Okay, so okay, he said having stable family and friends. You're saying, yeah, but not only having stable family and friends, but spending time with them, right? With family and friends, right? So that's what makes you happy. So now, yeah, having food, yeah, that's a good one. Like I'm surprised that nobody said that, right? Having good food. Like how can you? Uh, yeah, right. Has anyone been to the port of Peri Peri in New Jersey? We drive like all the way from New York to come in. You've been there. There's some bomb food, right? Some really good food. I suggest everybody tries it. I'm not trying to like promote their business or anything, but honestly, it's just really good food. I don't like spicy at all. I like their lemon and herbs. No, sorry, like we don't eat we don't eat spicy. We don't eat spicy. I marvel at all the Bengali kids that I only like wish I could be like that, that tolerate all the spice, but I can't. Yeah. That's really nice. That's subhanallah. That's actually you've amazed me. You've amazed me, honestly. You've made me proud. I don't know what to say. I'm like at a loss of words. MashaAllah, that's really good. A fulfilling life is a life in which we're part of the Muslim Ummah and we give dawah. Okay, so now I want us to think critically, right? Here's a few things. We've had different definitions of what happiness means, right? Some people have said having a lot of money. Some people have said, financial stability. Some people have said spending time with family. Some people have said being part of the Muslim Ummah. Which one is right? Hmm? But they can't all be right because they're saying different things. Like, can I say that 2 plus 2 equals 4, but also 2 plus 2 equals 5? I can't, right? Like it's either one or the other, right? So which definition is right? right? So it's subjective, it's arbitrary, right? It's arbitrary. So we can say something, we can say there is no objective right answer to what is happiness. So now we need an objective being to tell us what is happiness, right? One thing that we know about us as humans is we're very unsure. We're very uncertain about things, right? How do I know this? When a kid is like 4 years old, all that he loves is you give him like candies and you give him toys. Like that's basically his world right there. If you can buy him like more and more toys from Toys R Us, actually, if you could give him a room filled with just toys, he would love that, right? But what if you brought like an 18-year-old kid and you put him in that room? Is he gonna enjoy that? He's gonna be like, what are you doing, man? Right? He's gonna be confused, like, what are you trying to do? Right. But if you told an 18-year-old that, you know what, there's this really pretty girl at school that everybody's crushing on, and I've seen you eye her too. And you know what? She told me that she'll do whatever it takes to be with you. Now, would this make this 18-year-old happy? Right? We can say yes, right? Uh, is it so much curiosity or just like, yeah, I don't care why, but I'm down, bro. It sounds pretty good, right? I feel like that's gonna be most people's reaction. Now, what if you took that 4-year-old kid, that same guy, but when he was 4 year old, and you told him this, you told him this, he's gonna be like, ew, right? Like, get a room, right? Like, girls have cooties, right? So here's one thing we know for sure, that as time goes, we're constantly redefining what happiness is, right? Now take uh, that same guy who's 18. He grows up, mashallah, Allah gives him a long life, and he's like 60, 70 years old, right? He's 70 years old now. He's retired. He's seen all, the corporate life. He's made money. He has like a nice, Porsche sitting in his driveway. He has a few like cars that he's collecting. He has a nice house, everything, right? He has a summer house somewhere as well. Now this guy is set, and what does he like? What does he like? If you ask a lot of these older people, a lot of these elderly people, I'm really interested in having conversations with elderly people, and I'll tell you why, because they have so much experience and they have so much to tell you about, like, things that maybe we will come across, but they've already come across it. So they'll tell you, you know what, I enjoy experiences. Like, I would love to travel the world. Right? I would love to go see places. I would love to get to know new people, try out different things. If you told this elderly person that's like 70 years old, I want to give you a stable job, right? You will never get fired. Your salary is going to be 120K, right? Or maybe more. Let's make it 200K. Is this 70-year-old person going like thrilled now because of this? No, it's like, I've done all that. Like, what are you giving me? I'm not really interested in this, right? I'm interested if you told me like, yeah, I'll give you tickets to like go meet this person or like have this experience. They're going to be more interested in that, right? So here's one thing that we can say safely, that I've proven successfully, I think, right? And tell me if you have a counter argument. I would like to hear it. From birth until a person dies, their definition of happiness keeps being redefined, right? And a person is never really stable with that. So this is one thing that we can say, that we don't actually know what makes us happy. We think we know. And there's a difference, in philosophy, in epistemology. There's they discuss this. One is a state of mind, like you think you know something, and something is objective reality. These are two different things, right? You might think that you know this 100%. If we could keep away from phones for a bit, inshallah, we'll make it short. I'm not going to make it too long. And then after that, play with your phones all you want. Um, huh? Right. So we've successfully shown that we don't really know what makes us happy. I'll give you another example, right? Let's say there's a really nice restaurant that opens up like 5 blocks away, right? Halal food, uh, good reviews from everybody, and you just hear so much about their I don't know, their lamb, right? Their lamb shanks. So one day you decide, let's go with the family, and you eat it, and subhanallah, like, it's the softest and most tender lamb, and like warm, and you just love the taste. It's like amazing lamb. All right, it's pretty nice. A week after, you get a weekend. He's getting happy, eh? Right. So a week after, you go again. Now it's like, okay, it's still pretty good. Third week, you go again. Now you're like, yeah, this is good, right? Fourth time you go, it's like, okay, I've had this, right? So the first time, it's the same meat. It's being cooked the same way. It objectively tastes the same way, but our own experience and our own thought of it, of what level of happiness it would give us, keeps changing, right? So here's one thing that we can say for sure, that we don't actually know for sure what makes us happy. So what do we need? We need someone objective, someone who created us, someone who programmed us, to tell us actually what makes us happy. Does this make sense? Does that make sense? Like, does anybody understand what I'm saying? Is that since we're always changing and rechanging our definition of what is happiness, no one can really argue for an objective, real, true definition of happiness. So we need the being that created us, who programmed us, who knows us better than ourselves, to tell us what makes us happy. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, you have a question? Yeah. But with anything that changes, it's inconsistent, right? Like, what if, for example, the governor told you that today red light means that you can't cross the road, and tomorrow he's like, yeah, you know what? I felt a bit weird this morning. That red light didn't look quite right to me. I think at yellow everybody should stop. And then he changes. No, no, no. I think green is it's a really nice color, and I think everybody should stop at green, right? Like, if laws kept changing like that, we would say, like, okay, this is weird. This is inconsistent. It's not an objective definition of what is right and wrong. Does that make sense? Anything that is widely, different amongst people, or anything that is widely different within oneself, we can say that it's inconsistent. Yeah. But wouldn't you say that happiness affects everybody? Like, what if, okay, let me give you a scenario. What if there was somebody who was told, and there are people like that, like, you'll hear about, like, kids kidnapped in a basement, right? And they're told that, like, I don't know, whatever, like, if you get this, I'll give you food once a day, and this is like, this is basically your goal for now, right? For prisoners, right? Prisoners are not thinking about financial stability. They're not thinking about getting good job and this and that. They have certain, like, achievements that maybe they don't want to be stuck in solitary confinement, or they have, like, different goals, right? So can we say that they have a good definition of happiness? I don't think so. You see what I'm saying? Like, anything that, I get what you're trying to say, that it can vary, but my argument is that anything that varies is inconsistent, right? And I don't think, is it one of those things that can just keep changing? I don't think so. Like, if someone asked you, for example, like, green, can I name red green today? No. Like, green is going to be green, right? Like, having a stable definition, having an objective definition, makes it logical. Something that just keeps changing all the time, then it's almost like anything. Like, what is happiness? People would say, I don't know, because everybody's saying something different. So maybe happiness doesn't even exist, right? You see what I'm saying? You don't see what I'm saying? Does everybody else get what I'm saying? Right? Like, what part are you confused at? Yeah, like, happiness can just keep changing. Okay, all right. So let me explain this. This is kind of what we are told today. Like, our society will tell us that do what makes you happy. And actually, some uh, ideologies are also of the type that they'll tell you, like liberalism will tell you that do what makes you happy, even if it is at the cost of others, right? Like, for example, it's my right away. I will take it. I don't care what happens. Everybody understands right away. When you're driving, like different people have the right to go first. Everybody understands what right away is, right? At intersections where there's, mashallah, you're gonna pass your driving test if you, yeah. So, uh, so some people are like, no, 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 this is, I gotta take it. I don't care. Like maybe someone else has to go to the hospital. Maybe they have an emergency, right? Actually, I'll tell you something that happened to me like not too long ago. I don't know if these kids heard it. Basically, uh, I was at the laundromat with my wife, and we were dropping off laundry. And what happened is that I parked next to a car, and I was about to like parallel park, right? Like just go behind that car and park properly. But all of a sudden, I see this at the intersection. Someone, there's this lady that's driving really fast, and she hits this guy on a bicycle, and the guy literally like flies over, right? So I just stopped my car. I didn't park. I just stopped my car and like ran to him. I'm like, are you okay? Everything's okay. So there was a couple of other guys that were there. One guy was calling 911. So I went back to my car. I'm like, let me park it properly. During that, like in the meantime, there's this Hispanic woman that came, and she parked right behind me. She's not also parked in the proper spot. I told her, can you just move your car a little bit behind? I'll just park properly. She said, oh, why didn't you do it before? I was like, the guy just like literally flew from the accident. Yeah. Like I went to look after him. He said, she's like, oh no, I don't care. You should have parked properly. Like sometimes our society pushes like my happiness is so important that I don't give two flying anything about like what happens to anybody else. Why? Because like this makes me happy and I have to have it, right? Islam tells you no. Islam tells you do what makes everybody happy, right? Islam tells you do what keeps a family, a society, everybody happy, not only you, right? That's why in Islam we talk about responsibilities, not only about rights. In our society we talk about right, 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 like this is your right, this is your right, this is your right, but nobody ever talks about like what is your responsibility, what do you owe other people, right? Islam tells you these are our responsibilities. You be the responsible person, you make everybody happy, and all of a sudden you'll see that you're going to be happy. Why? Because if everybody worried about making everyone else happy, what would that mean? That they're also worried about making you happy. Does that make sense? If we look at the rate of divorce amongst people today, they say that over 60% of couples they get divorced. And one of the primary reasons is exactly this, because a husband goes thinking like my wife should do this for me. The wife goes and thinks like no, the husband should be like this, like this, like this with me, right? So they're looking for what the other person should be doing to me, instead of thinking like what should I be doing for that person. Does that make sense? This is a more mature Islam is very old, right? It's a 1400 year old tradition, and not only that, it's many millennia even before that, because Islam comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Islam caters to our nature, the fitrah, right? Allah recognizes us. Allah is our creator. Allah is our programmer. He knows how we function, so He tells us those things that makes us happy. And so sometimes what happens is, I'll give you an example. Sometimes it happens to kids, right? They see you like, I mean, it hasn't happened with my son yet, but in small instances it happens, like when we eat fish, right, that has bones and stuff. Now he doesn't want to eat like his mashed fruits and whatnot. He wants to come eat our food. But is this good for him? Like what if he ate a fish with bones in it? Is this good for him? But he doesn't know that. He thinks like, no, this is what I want. Now sometimes you have like younger kids like, I want to drive, dad, let me drive, right? You want to drive too, right? But do you think it's a good idea if I let Jawad come and drive my car? Nobody will agree to this, even though that would make him thrilled. He'd be so happy. It would be like the happiest day of his life. Like he's gonna go tell all his friends, yo guys, I drove a car, right? But that's not necessarily good for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. He programmed us. So as our creator and as our programmer, He knows what makes us happy. So the question for the program was, what is the purpose of our life? And I asked for different definitions, and I mentioned that this is a deeply philosophical question, and it's not something that we're discussing today. It's been discussed for 1,000 years, right? And I can give you like what Zen Buddhism says about it, what like Aristotle said about it. I can tell you what the different philosophers say, but the best definition that you will get is living your life according to the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, because that is the perfect way of life. And eventually Eventually, that's what humans, they come to the conclusion of. When they're like 70, 80 years old, then they come. You see so many like older people accepting Islam. Why? Because after seeing like all of the different religions, all of the different ideologies, after going through the experience of making tons of money and having a nice house and nice car and everything, they come to the realization that, man, like this is what I was missing from my life. This kind of purpose in my life, this kind of happiness, this kind of wholesome feeling is what I was missing, right? So we should be really grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it to us, without any kind of effort, right? This is truly a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the question was, what is the purpose of our life? And we arrived at a definition, which is basically the natural tendency of human beings is to pursue that which makes them happy, right? And then we discuss what makes us happy, and we mentioned that this is something that is widely deferred by everybody. So we need the creator and the programmer to tell us what makes us happy, and that is to live a life according to the way that he wants us. And I'll just leave you with this one piece of evidence, right? There's a book written by a scholar from the 9th century Hijri. His name is Hafiz ibn Hajar. He wrote an 8-volume book called Al-Isaba fi Tamyiz al-Sahaba. And he wrote the biographies of 10,000 Sahaba in there. Right? Now, I want anybody, if you can read Arabic, if you can't, then learn it. I want you to go through any of those 10,000 Sahaba and find me one Sahabi who hated his life. Was like FML, right? Or like I'm depressed and don't worry about it, right? But you won't find a single Sahabi who hated their life, who was like, man, I'm tired of this, man. I can't do this anymore. Subhanallah, just yesterday, I don't know if you guys checked the news in Texas. Does anyone know about the right? Subhanallah, right? It's something really to think about. There was a man, a Muslim man, unfortunately, he shot his wife, his 2 daughters, and his mother-in-law, and then he killed himself, right? You will not find a single case amongst the Sahaba that this ever happened, right? And I'm not saying mental health doesn't exist. Of course, mental health exists, right? And a person who's suffering from mental health, we should be understanding, compassionate towards them. They should seek treatment as well. Just like you have physical illnesses, there's also mental illnesses, and they require treatment. I think our society is terrible. They're not like we're not doing a good job dealing with mental health issues. Sometimes it's very taboo, especially in the Muslim community. We don't like to talk about it, right? But I think it's something that definitely we should talk about. But I'll tell you this, that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, once they got the gift of Islam, they were so happy, they were so fulfilled that they didn't feel like they needed anything else, right? So this is the Islam that we need to acquaint ourselves with. We need to learn our deen, right? Unfortunately, many of us, we don't know much about our deen. We don't know about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. We don't know about the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Once we read their lives, then we'll see what our our heritage is about. We will see our history. So inshallah, we'll all do this. Let's study our deen. Let's study Islam. Let's find out what gives us this this complete and perfect form of happiness. We'll all do this inshallah. I heard like 2 people say inshallah. So y'all don't want to do this? Does everybody want to inshallah learn Islam, learn about the life of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and find out about that Islam that made them have a perfect life? Inshallah? All right. Now I heard like 5-6 people. It's still better. Okay, inshallah. So if anybody has any questions, we'll give some time right now, and we'll have inshallah 12 minutes? Inshallah. Any questions?
Anyone, feel free. Any questions?
If you don't have questions, we'll just have food.
Maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't ask what FML said. Oh, yeah. Don't worry about it. Any questions, guys? Any questions? Anything? Come on.
So like all the current events happening right now. In Buffalo there was a shooting as well, right? And then and then the Texas thing happened. And
Okay, so the brother has a question. Let's listen to him.
and I feel like all these current events, they do have a connection with the purpose of life. Like those people, why would they do such thing? This is the worst thing someone can do, right? Kill people, right? So like I, I feel like, why is that? Like, is it like youths are having hard time, or like understanding the purpose of life? And even it's happening in our Muslim community. The tragic event happened, it was in our Muslim community. uh, if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. So he mentioned about the basically like the shootings that are happening, school shootings or the Buffalo shooting, and then this homicide slash suicide that happened in Texas, and its relation with the purpose of life. Well, I think different things, they have different causes too. Um, like that was racially motivated in Buffalo, but I do think that at the end of the day, it does have to come down to the purpose of life. See, if a person follows the ideology and the philosophy laid by the Prophet ﷺ, the Islamic ideology, then in the Islamic ideology, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does he say? He says, uh, uh, وَمَنْ قَتَلَ فَكَأَنَّهُ قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. The person who kills, it's as if he's killed all of mankind, right? And I don't know if you guys know about MLK, Martin Luther King, right? He said this really like golden thing in one of his letter to Birmingham, and when he was in a jail, he wrote this letter, and he said one thing. He says, "Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere," right? So, and this is really something to think about. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is also saying in the Quran, He's saying that if a person kills a person, it's as if he's killed all of mankind. And the reason for this is because when can a person kill somebody else? When they have so much hatred in their heart that they feel like this person does not deserve to exist. That's what killing means, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and actually Islam teaches us to live in a united manner. These kids would know, like they were there in ICPC. I was talking about one time amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, uh, they loved each other so much to the point. And if you look at their history, they didn't used to love each other. They used to go to war for like absolutely no reason, right? If a person won a race with the horse, they would go to war over that for like decades, right? Silly reasons like that. They would fight for no reason. When the Prophet ﷺ came, they had so much love that one person, he cooked a goat head, and then he gave it to his neighbor, and that person gave it to somebody else because he's like, what, I love this brother, so I'm going to give it to him. And he gave it to somebody else, and he gave it to somebody else. It went around 7 families like that, and it came back to the first person, right? So this is insane to think about. Imagine generosity like this. Like, I have this phone, and I feel like, maybe my brother here, he deserves this phone more than me because he doesn't have a phone. I have 2 phones, so maybe he needs one. So I give it to him, and he feels like, what, I know somebody else who needs one, and he gives it to him, and then he gives it to somebody else, and he gives it to somebody else, and it finally comes back to me. Imagine the level of generosity that it takes to be like that, right? So this is what the Prophet ﷺ, that's the kind of community that he created. Today we talk about what makes me happy. Like, I gotta have this phone. Like, I have 3 phones, but it's fine. Like, I gotta have it. Why? Because I made the money for it. I deserve it. I deserve this happiness. We don't really think too much about other people, right? And the Prophet ﷺ always taught us to think about other people. So you asked about the connection with the purpose of life. If we had a society where you had a society like the one that the Prophet ﷺ brought, you would never have a person who's 18 years old and he has an entire life ahead of him. He could like be making a career, he could be contributing to society, but instead of that, he decides that I'm going to go shoot people in a supermarket, right? That kind of thing takes this level of hatred. These kind of people, they don't deserve to exist. But in Islam, alhamdulillah, we don't, the Prophet ﷺ taught us to love each other. Right? So that's, I guess, the connection that you can make to the purpose of life. Yeah.
And like one of the things that in our community a lot of people doesn't focus on is like growing up. You know how what you said is completely like it's true and I agree. But back then, like in our prophets era at that time, like, they were going through so many difficulties. They had like little to no like any type of thing that makes them happy. Let's say like they had very minimal thing for them to set up on and then say, okay, this makes me happy, following Allah's rules and everything else. So that was like very like small at that time, right? But nowadays there's like so many things, but yet people are not happy. But with the kid that shot up the place, right? There's like one of the things a lot of stuff, especially in our community, people doesn't focus on is depression. It's like you're depressed because let's say your parents wasn't there to talk to you, or let's say the person like you feel close to wasn't there for you. Like even the kid that shut up the place in Buffalo, he was like one of his teacher later on came up and said that he wrote an essay in school about killing himself and shooting people up. So things like that, like he was so depressed to the point he couldn't talk to anybody. So that's a lot of things like we don't focus, especially in our like Asian community, in
Yeah.
our community, in our own household. I'm not gonna lie, in my own household, they think like, okay, if you just like study and then pray 5 times a day, your depression can go away.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen
Yeah,
overnight.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
like, no, you gotta pray. If you pray, Allah will make it.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you, and I mentioned the point. I don't know if you heard it, but I mentioned that in our communities we kind of take mental health as a taboo. Like we don't like to talk about it. Unfortunately, it's a reality, right? And we need to talk about it. I don't know if like the Buffalo shooting it relates to this though, because I think his shooting himself and like killing other people is more like hate motivated and maybe not like so much depression. I don't know. I didn't go check his life out or anything, but maybe it was actually depression. I don't know. But you're right, like definitely in our communities that's something that we should address. And you know, one of the most amazing things that I've seen is in Canada we have this really big mosque. It's an Isna mosque, and they actually hired a Muslim scholar who's also a psychotherapist who has office hours like twice a week. So I think that's absolutely amazing. I think we need more resources like that. You know,
We were talking about with Adil, yeah, brother Adil, we talked about like to have a something in our like, especially the Muslim, to come down and talk about it. Especially like it doesn't have to be in a group basis.
Yeah.
Like, even though like I heard like group therapy helps most, but
Yeah.
like if people doesn't feel comfortable, they could like come sit with one of the brothers and talk about
Yeah.
what really not making them happy, you know? Because again, depression is one of the most things our community like just like overlooks. They say like it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
But it's one of the biggest thing like if you're,
People are suffering from.
yeah, like again, we talked about happiness. What really makes you happy? If you're depressed, nothing makes you happy. Because I had a friend like she literally was so depressed to the point she never seen anything that made her happy.
Yeah.
So I told her I was like, do more like just go out, look at different things like on a different basis, different daily basis. Maybe you'll find something on one of the days like wow, this makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know, just like that's the thing. Like
You know, actually, I'll tell you something about this. A lot of people, like I've had my fair share of, acquaintances with people, and I was very close to them. People that are chronically depressed, and there's two things I want to say about this, and I don't want to linger on this too long because I don't know if all the kids are following. Um, one thing is that if a person has a true connection with Allah, it's practically impossible for them to be depressed, and I'll tell you why. Because if a person is sad, right, let's say they enjoy absolutely nothing in life, like let's say they go out, take a walk, see the scenery, and they're like, I don't care, man, this doesn't make me happy, right? Maybe they go eat the nicest food and they're like, I don't care for this, right? Maybe they have like many achievements, but that also doesn't make them happy, right? There was another Texas incident like maybe last year. I don't know if you guys remember these two brothers, right? And actually they wrote a whole thing, and in there they were saying like, I had a stable relationship, like girls liked me, I was doing good at school, I got accepted at college, this and that, I was getting job offers, this and that. And he still like shot his grandma, his like senile grandma, and his parents and everybody else. So it's not even necessary that these things will make them happy, but at least one thing is there for sure, and it's the fact that the Prophet ﷺ says, think about this hadith. It's a strange and a very unique hadith. He says, "Ajaban li amri al-mu'min." He says the condition of a believer is very strange. He says, why? And he says, this condition is only for a believer. He says, in asabathu sarra, if something good happens to him, if something makes them happy, then he is happy about it and he is grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He thanks Allah for it. And وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّةٌ, if something bad happens to him, then he is patient, and he knows that at the end of the day he's making Allah happy. So this still keeps them fulfilled. So imagine a person who never finds anything fulfilling, or like something that makes them happy, not food, not games, not I don't know, like being married to somebody, nothing, right? One thing would still have them fulfilled: the fact that they're going through this and they're persevering, and the fact that Allah is happy with them for that, right?
That's the thing. Is like one of the things is like even like the believers. So for example, let's talk about people in this day around, right? Like in our like society, not just a community stuff, just a society where like it doesn't have to be just Asian. It can
Yeah,
be
yeah,
anybody, right?
yeah.
So it's like we talk about like okay, like we should follow the path of what Allah like told us to follow. You know, like we should follow that path. But then again, it raises question for some people who make them go away from the path of like what like our prophet set up for us, what like Allah wants us to do. It's like such questions as like okay, if Allah really wanted us to do good thing, then why do we have things such as like COVID that's killing millions of people around the
Yeah.
world? Then why do we have conflicts such as like for example, let's say we have
I can actually, if you want, I can actually answer these questions in detail. This is called the problem of evil. It's a philosophical question. There's a lot of scholars that answered this question. There's Islamic responses to it too. I've recently written a whole paper on this topic. Um, However, I don't want to go into it here, and the reason for that is because I think it's a deeply intriguing question, and there's deeper, longer answers to it. And this is not the only question. There are many other questions that can deter someone from Deen. That's why you need good scholars. You need good scholars that understand the society, that lived in the society, grew up with the same people, understand the needs of those same people, and are able to cater to that. And if somebody has questions, they'll be able to answer it. But you did interrupt my second point. I wanted to mention a second point. I think something that's slowly happening, but it's still not at its peak, is Islamically induced psychotherapy. So there is this place called Khalil Center, and it started off in Chicago. They have multiple chapters. They have a chapter in Canada as well, and it's basically like an integration between professional psychotherapists, and they work with spiritual remedies as well. And they found actually many spiritual remedies that fix a lot of like, for example, OCD and many other mental health issues. It's really helpful. So I think actually, rather than most of our kids becoming doctors and engineers, maybe we could have a few therapists, right? We could have a few scholars, maybe some that are scholars and therapists. I think that would be a very good solution to some of the crises that we have today. I'm encouraging actually my wife to currently pursue that path, and hopefully we can start something like in the East Coast, inshallah.
Yeah, that's the thing, because like a lot of us, like what we see in our Asian family is like if questions like this raises, right? Like instead of giving you the answer to that question or telling
They'll shut you off.
and they will be like, oh, like don't even worry about
Yeah.
it. It's, like, it's just the phase. You will go through the phase
Until the guy shoots his whole family.
Yeah, it's just like they're like okay, the phase.
Yeah.
Like you don't understand. Like that leads you to depression.
Yeah.
That leads you to walk away from your
Yeah.
That's something like parents doesn't want to understand.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Just to add on to the definition situation that we come from in Buffalo, Texas. It's really sad to see that many of these becomes very like on a day-to-day basis. It's almost like constant review thoughts. And the question that I have is a pretty common question. I just wanted to get your info on it. If God exists, then why do bad things happen?
That's exactly what he asked. That's called the problem of evil.
And then you said you wrote a paper on it.
Yeah.
By any chance,
Do you want me to share with you?
yes, I think it's funny.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can share it, inshallah. Maybe I can give it to Jarir, and yeah. I'll also share some other ones as well. I don't know if you know Yaqeen Institute. You know Yaqeen? Yeah, Yaqeen. Yeah, Omar Sulaiman runs it, but there's another scholar that wrote a good paper on it as well. Like why does evil occur if God exists? So he wrote a good paper on it too. I'll forward this to, inshallah. What? Ooh, that's actually a decent answer too. That some tribulations actually make us better.
Another question is, I feel like many of us face sometimes is that we do know that the purpose of life is to worship Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, but how do we go about understanding in real life in our actions? It's sometimes we do know the fact, but when it comes to like how do we implement that fact in our life?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. Okay, so I want everybody to focus on this one. Okay, So he asked a very practical question. All right, can we all like sit down with some energy and yeah, so all right, so he asked a really great question, and I want everybody to pay special attention to this one. So he said, he asked, what is a practical application? Like we know that we should live our life according to the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, but what does that actually mean? Like practically, what does that mean? I'll give a very short but hopefully sweet answer to this. And it goes back to one thing that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said as a dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to also say this. He said, Qul, he's telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna salati, my prayer, wa nusuki, and my sacrifices, like on the day of Eid we sacrifice. And then he says, wa mahyaya, and my living, wa mamati, and even my death, lillahi rabbil alamin. It's all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's this, and I also want to add another thing. When Jibreel alayhi salam, is part of a lengthy hadith, when Jibreel alayhi salam, he asked about the highest level of Iman, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in one narration he says, أن تخشى الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك, that you live your life in such a way that as if you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but since you cannot see him, know that he can see you. Now basically this is what it means, that every step that you take, everything that you say, every action that you do, make it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like judge it, analyze it, like Allah is my closest friend. He's the one who's made my life as it is. Like I'm here instead of like rotting in a prison cell, or I'm here instead of like being in a war-torn country, or I'm here instead of being one of those beggars on the street, or I'm here instead of being one of the drug addicts that are there and that are begging for money. That fact that I'm here is the choice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the decree and the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he loves me. So the question that we must always ask ourselves is, I'm about to do this, does Allah like this or not? Like I'm about to choose this career path, does Allah like this or not? I'm about to eat this, does Allah like this or not? So at all junctions we should see if this pleases Allah or not. That's basically how we can practically live out the way that, and it doesn't have to be anything that you share with anybody. Like let's say there's a piece of chicken left in the fridge, right? Fried chicken, it was really good. Let's say it's not in the fridge, actually it was fresh, someone brought a bunch of chicken, everybody ate their fair share, and there's one piece left, and nobody's looking, you're about to take it. Now you ask yourself, like, would Allah be more pleased if I had this last piece, or I felt compassion for my siblings and I left it for them? What would make Allah happier with me, right? So that's basically the practical way. Right? So that's basically the practical way, that in every junction we ask ourselves, like, what would make Allah happier with me? And you don't have to tell anybody about it. Just ask yourself, answer the question for yourself, and act accordingly. That would be my practical answer to it. Should we wrap it up?
Any last questions? Anybody else? Any last ones?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, one more question.
Isn't like a lot of people that when like someone being spread around, isn't like a lot of people get killed and stuff while it was being spread around, from like Sahaba and stuff.
Yeah.
Was when Islam was being spread around with the Sahabas and whatnot, was like there was people dying.
So this is really interesting. It depends how we see death, and I think basically, in our society, dude, you can't ask the question and then not listen to it. You gotta listen to it. So basically, in our society, I feel like the way we view many things is wrong. Like the way we view a lot of men, or maybe most men, the way we view women, it's wrong. Like I don't think we view them the right way. I don't think the way we understand women is the way that we should understand them. There's a lot to say about this. The way we view money, I don't think we see it the right way. We make it of intrinsic value, but it doesn't actually have intrinsic value. Similarly, death also, we view it the wrong way. Now, in our society, we're basically, the way we kind of see things, and the way, like our schooling, the world basically tells us, is that, look, you have from here until you're like 70, 80, 90, whatever, then you're going to die. Like everything you have to do, it has to be during this time. That's how kind of we see it, right? Isn't that like how we see life? Yes, no, right? That's how we see life, right? That basically we have like from now until death, until I'm like 80 or 70 or whatever, and then everything I gotta go do, everything I have to experience has to be within this time frame. That's not how death is seen Islamically. Death it's like a door to go to another room. Does that make sense? It's not a dead end. It's not like you're here and then khalas, the door is closed. That's not how it is. It's just one, like we're in a stage and we're going to a different stage. It's like basically if a fetus was within a womb, and let's say it had the cognitive ability to think that way, and it's like, you know what, everything I gotta do, all the food I gotta eat, it has to be like within these 9 months, because after that I'm gonna be gone. Well, dude, you're not gonna be gone. You're actually going to a better life. Like you're gonna come out in an actual world where you can have like tons of different types of food and see so many different types of things. Does that make sense? So if a fetus were to understand that after these 9 months I actually don't have anything left, it's a very narrow understanding. So that's how we are today, that we see death as an end point. It's not an end point. It's actually a portal to go to a much vast, a much better life if we choose it to be that way. Does that make sense? So was there death and not during the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu? There was, but the Sahaba radiallahu anhu they didn't understand death the way we understand it today. They saw it just as a step to go to the next part, which is an even better part. Does that make sense? Yeah, you have a question?
Like if the guy was like he did bad stuff and he knew that Islam was the right religion, he kept doing bad stuff. He would have to eat all that food in 9 months, because then after that he would actually have a like
A worse life.
worse life.
Yeah.
than
Yeah, I agree with that.
my children.
But obviously, a smart person would do whatever it takes in those 9 months to have a better life after, not a worse life, right? That's what a smart person would do. So that's what we should do in this life. Anyway, I think we'll close it off.
Wrap it up for now. All right, Jazakallah, Mufti Tofael. That was a very beneficial and informative talk. Good discussion. Inshallah, we're gonna have our food now. We're gonna move everybody to the other room on the other side, so everybody start walking over there. Pretty sure it's already ready by now. So yeah, he's ready. Okay, yeah, we can all start heading over there then.